The second part of the course is entitled Modern Greek Judaism. Basically, the experience of the Jews in Greece during the modern period. We accentuated the Romaniot community, the Holocaust period, this Jewish community of Yanina, why it's different, why it was special, why it was vibrant. There were a vibrant community of merchants, of silversmiths. They had Western education. They were very Zionist. In Salonika, the community had philanthropists, industrialists. They westernized and modernized the city. All throughout Greece, the Jews were very successful in commerce. They made societal contributions. They were always a minority, except for Salonika. During the Greek period in Salonika, the Jews essentially are resented and contested. They proliferated in the Ottoman Empire. They had autonomy. Even if most of the Jews were poor, they felt at home and comfortable. The Greek period was much more, we'll call it, fictitious. But the Jews of Old Greece, let's say in Athens and Thessaly became part of Greece in 1881, 1882. These people were more integrated in Greek society. They had already been in the Greek army. They spoke Greek in addition to, let's say, their Judeo-Greek or their Judeo-Spanish. And they felt part of the society. They're also revered and felt as part of the society by their fellow townsmen. There were incidents where the Jews were resented. There was anti-Semitism. There was agitation from the Greek Orthodox lower clergy. There were anti-Semitic polemics and treatises written. But in general, the Jews made a contribution. They fought in the Greek wars, but then the conflicts began when the Ottoman Empire fell, and all the Jews had to be part of the Greek state. For the most part, the Jews adapted. They adapted even economically, despite the boycotts, despite losing their, let's say, monopoly in Salonika on the port and on commerce in the city. But in places like Thrace, it was more problematic because in World War I, the cities were captured by the Bulgarians, and then the Greeks came back, and then there were towns that were intermittently between Greek and Bulgarian rule 4 times. So life was very tumultuous. There was a lot of violence, a lot of damage from the wars. You had the Salonican fire, which wasn't caused because of the war, but it happened on a Shabbat, and there was a local fire, and it just expanded. And the British and the French soldiers didn't intervene. They thought that the city would eventually be attacked anyway, so why make the effort? And half the city was destroyed. The peculiarity in Greece is that even after the Ottoman Empire, there still were blood libels. So an area like Thessaly, like with the communities of Larissa, Volos, and Trikala, you had blood libels by Greek Orthodox before in the Ottoman Empire. That was also a way of agitating the regime and getting back at the Jews for being pro-sovereign and against Greek nationalism. But after these areas became Greek in 1881, in the 1890s you had blood libels in the same regions. So it's old resentment coming to the forefront. So in the second part, of course, we have the Holocaust, we have Zionism, we have the Greek socialist movement, which was essentially Jewish and mainly based in Salonika, of 6,000 tobacco workers. So you see a wide variety of political streams, whereas in the late 17th century there was a strong rabbinic culture in Salonika. By the 20th century, you don't have a strong rabbinic culture anymore. It's very watered down. It still exists. Many less publications, many less yeshivot, but the course also will focus on religious education, some of the yeshivot, a little in Salonika, a little bit in Rhodes, but you see a general secularization. After the war, there's the Civil War, and the Jews are on both sides. More, they're in the Greek army for another 3 years, fighting against the communists, but the Greek army didn't pursue Jews per se as communists, but there were victims. There were actually Jews who were hung, there were Jews who were in forced labor, and it wasn't a nice thing. You had illegal immigration in 45-46 after the Holocaust to Palestine. In 1951, America they freed the quotas. Jews who were Holocaust victims could come to America and weren't part of the general Greek quota. So that you had migrations from Greek Jews in the 50s to the United States, to New York and Los Angeles, etc. The course talks a little bit about the Salonican and Greek Jewish enclaves in Israel and also in Paris. In Israel, it talks about a few of the Jewish Greek Moshavim, a little bit about how they got to kibbutz, to Givat Brenner. They were also in some kibbutzim in Emek Israel and Emek Beit Shan. But Greek Jewry as a whole was a victim of the Holocaust. So the second part of the course also will talk extensively about the Holocaust, but also about what else happened before and after. More before. It talks a lot about, the course will talk a lot about the interwar period, what happened to the Jews of Salonika. Also, you'll hear a little about how Jews prospered in Rhodes. There were affluent bankers, or there were industrialists in Athens. Mostly Jews were small-time fabric merchants in Thessaly and other places. And but even in the Greek period, most Jews had a decent life. So the second half of the course is obviously more 19th, 20th century perspective, which is parallel to modern Greek history and the history of the independent Greek state from 1821 onward in stages. And it should be very interesting.